podcast for your soul, your compass, your journey, your light. Welcome to Podcast for Your Soul. This podcast is for spiritual people who like to listen to spiritual teachers from around the world. This is your host, Nico Balschuweit, and today's guest is Suresh Ramaswamy. Suresh is a transformational teacher, a visionary entrepreneur, passionate about igniting and catalyzing the transformation of humanity. He is an award-winning author of the book Just Be, and it's about transforming your life and live as infinity, and we will talk about that more during the interview. With his background as an electrical engineer and a technology executive, Suresh brings a very pragmatic approach to elevating the consciousness on our planet. And with his light-filled presence, Suresh helps people to awaken to their innermost essence. Suresh, I feel honored to have you on my show. Welcome.
Nico, it's a total delight to be here with you and all your listeners and viewers. I'm very much looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much, Suresh. There's so many questions. I guess we dive right in, shall we?
Sure.
So the first one, I think, is obvious for every listener when I introduced you. So the first question would be, you're a technical engineer. You are an executive. You built your own IT company. What inspired you to write a book about beingness?
Okay. Yes, that's a good question. So even though my career on the outside was technology-oriented and business-oriented, internally, I was always very interested in personal transformation, spirituality, higher consciousness, metaphysics, and so on. So this was, from a very early age, I was reading all these books, I was trying to meditate, I was doing whatever I could do, but it was a personal, private passion, if you will. Mm. And as this developed over many, many years, and I would say many decades later, as I started to truly come across these higher truths, higher dimensions in my own direct experience, even at that point, I was actually mostly thinking about it as my own personal journey. At some point, what happened was when I was actually sort of having this internal conversation, if you will, with my own higher self, I was actually asked to start sharing about this. And I was very reluctant, to say the least, because whether it's writing a book about this or teaching, I felt like there was already so many wonderful books, there was already so many wonderful teachers, so I was not terribly inclined to do that. Because I felt like the concepts had already been very well articulated by so many people. And I felt like the only way I would do something like writing a book would be if the book itself had vibrations in it, which can transform the reader and transform their consciousness. And that was a tall order. I felt like that's not something that I could do personally. And this was when I was given this sort of vision, if you will, where I was shown that the vibration would be taken care of.
If I may interrupt you, Suresh,
yes.
I have goosebumps because what happened is when I'm reading this book, I have to say I love to listen to audiobooks, and then usually for me it's difficult. I'm a slow reader. But what happened in this book, and it happens every time, if I open it, I start reading, I sense a calmness, an inner peace. I'm uplifted. And one of my questions was actually, did you know about this? Was it intentional, or what happened? What's in this book apart from letters? Yeah. And that's an invitation to everyone who's listening right now. If you order the book and read the book, there is a lot of vibrational information between the lines. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that's for me, it's the first time I hear that someone says, okay, I'm writing a book, but the reader needs to get let's say a transmission of vibrations while they're reading it.
Yes.
Wow. So
Yes.
that was my experience. I just want to share that.
Oh,
Please,
thank you.
please, please.
I really appreciate that.
Mm,
Yes. And it was very intentional, to answer your question. It was very intentional to infuse these high vibrations. And you could say more accurately, to allow these high vibrations to be infused and me getting out of the way. But there was an intention on my part. So there was an active involvement in wanting that and allowing that. And that was very much my feeling every time I was sitting down to write this book. I would be filled with this tremendous vibration that I knew there were souls out there who are ready for exactly this. So I was very much connecting with the reader, even though the reading would happen later. But as far as I am concerned, when I was writing it, I was right there with the reader, with the reader's consciousness, because our consciousness is not separated by time and space. Even this conversation we're having right now, somebody might watch it 5 years from now. It's still potent. It's still like it's happening right then. So similarly with the book, there was a very strong and clear intention to do that. In fact, without that vibrational infusion, I was not going to write the book. So it's really thanks to, you could say, infinity to really co-create this and participate actively in the creation of this book.
I love this. Also, when you say vibrational infusion, and that's a synergy where we connect so well, although we almost don't know each other, because Podcast for Your Soul, it was the same intention. It's just really inviting people like you from around the world, but the let's say core desire which I have in doing this is just share the vibration in the exchange. And as you say, this is timeless. And you're the first person who puts this into words. So I wrote this down, the vibrational infusion. I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Nico, what you're doing with the podcast, I mean, it is very evident from the questions, and not just the questions you pose, but the space from which you pose it. It was very obvious to me that you're coming from that beautiful space. So that's why I was very keen on having this conversation with you.
Yeah, yes, thank you. That's what my soul told me to do. Is this is about deep listening. This is all you need to do, deep listening. And this created so much space for holding space for. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve my guest, and I'm here to serve every listener who is listening to the podcast. So thanks. Yeah. So then beingness. What does it mean for you? This concept of just be and beingness, and
yeah. So, you know, in the journey of spiritual evolution, we come across so many interesting and fascinating things. And like you, like the listeners, I came across so many things over the years. But when I started writing the book, I set everything aside. I set everything aside and said, you know, what is it from the perspective of the totality, of pure consciousness, of the all? From that perspective, what is it that we as evolving beings need to understand and know? And it was very clear this was about beingness. Because beingness, it transcends a lot of the things we get caught up in terms of what is spiritual transformation all about. There's so many fascinating things out there. Beingness goes, to me, to the very fundamentals of what it's all about. And that goes back to who we truly are and how we function from that place of being who we truly are. And so my intention was not to write a thesis about this, but to really remind us of that, because that is built into you. It's not something you're going to get from the book. You are already built for beingness. You know,
Yes.
beingness is intrinsic to you. Beingness is so fundamental, you cannot get away from it, actually. All that the book is doing, all I'm trying to do is to gently remind us about that. And some of us, we don't need much of a reminder. In fact, I feel just reading the title of the book, Just Be, is enough for many people, because that's enough to completely let us release a lot of this conceptual baggage that we carry. And when we release all that, we get back to what is really there, our essence, and that is all about beingness. In fact, beingness is so fundamental, we cannot even say a lot of things about it. Because I cannot tell you beingness is blue colored, it's 10 feet tall, and it is found in this place out in the Himalayas. You know, it's not anything like that. It's our essence. So it literally is formless, it's attributeless, it's dimensionless, it's timeless. And it's who we are. And so to approach this, of course, I try to give people a sense of it so that they can start intuiting what beingness is. And in the best way to think about it is if you drop away everything you can think of about yourself and about the world, both. If you drop everything, you eventually come down to, you know, my family, my history, who I think I really am. All of those things you could, when you drop and you simply show up as pure presence, you will be directly contacting what I'm talking about as pure beingness, because that is what's left. When we peel away all the layers, that's what's there. So that's what beingness is about. And I, of course, talk about the journey that one might go through to really taste it and to be established in it. Ultimately, we want to be established in it so that it's not just a beautiful experience we have in nature or on a retreat or something, but it becomes back to what it used to be, a very natural part of our life.
Yes, beautiful. Would you like to summarize for us the major phases of the journey as you describe it in the book?
Yes. So if we were to really step back and see how somebody evolves over large periods of time, and I'm talking years, decades, centuries, then you can kind of see these three phases. The first phase is what I would call transcendence. Transcendence is our ability to lift our consciousness so that we can see the big picture. So you can see the big picture of our life. We can see the big picture of who we are. And essentially, we're freeing ourselves from the day-to-day sort of concerns. And we see the big picture. And when we see that, we get the feeling, you know, all is well. I have a lot of things troubling me, but all is well. There's a deep sense of peace and fulfillment and completion and wholeness. This is what transcendence gives us. Now, transcendence is great, but usually what happens is we touch it and then the meditation is over, we come back to it, the retreat is over, we come back and okay, now I have to suddenly deal with my more ordinary consciousness. So transcendence is great, but it's hardly enough. But it's good because we know directly that this is true. It's not just something we read somewhere. From transcendence, the next big phase is integration. Integration is bringing all aspects of our being into this knowing, into this understanding, into this realization. so that it's not just a part of me which is seeing this, but all aspects of me are lifted up into the light. And they're all feeling the light. So now we are fully transformed, and that leads naturally to the next phase, which is embodiment. Embodiment is now we're drenched in this knowing, realization, this light, and the natural urge is to share this light with the collective, with the world, with our families, with our neighbors, with everybody, so that we're living and demonstrating that we can carry this light, we can hold this light, we can share this light. So this is the embodiment phase. So these are the three major phases in a nutshell. Each one of these, there's so much more we could say. But the one thing I do want to say is, don't think of it as you go through transcendence, you master transcendence. Now you're going to start with integration, you're going to master integration, then you're going to start with embodiment. It's not quite like that. There is a macro aspect to it, but there's also a micro aspect. So the micro aspect is each of these is happening all the time. So if you meditated, let's say this morning, you had transcendence, some transcendence happening there. Well, later in the day, you had some integration happening when you were having some business meetings and conversations. Maybe later in the day, you were embodying it, you were sharing that. So all of these can be happening, in the same day, but they're also unfolding in a bigger context.
Beautiful. It's like a cycle, in different perspectives, and different levels. Wow, beautiful.
Yes.
I can sense it, and I'm sure the listeners they can sense this also. The meaning of transcendence in integration, and then the embodiment. And I think that's sometimes the biggest challenge. How do you embody an experience under different circumstances when you struggle? And I know there's one emphasis you put on relationships, and where you say it's so important, no matter how hard a relationship can be, but we need a relationship for this embodiment or to go through the process. Can you share with us why is relationship from your perspective so important for your beingness?
Yes, that's a great question, because oftentimes we struggle with relationships, whether we're on the spiritual path or not. Relationships are constantly there, right from the time we're born. And they're always presenting to us the possibilities for expansion. But usually we don't see it that way. We usually see it as conflict. We may see it as some sort of disagreement. We may see it as some sort of stress. In reality, relationships are an absolutely beautiful opportunity for those who are consciously on a path of growth and evolution. Because if you look at transcendence, it's something often that happens, you're sitting quietly in meditation, and then you come back into the world, you are thrown into relationships, personal relationships, business relationships, and relationships will instantly pull us out of that. It's not that they're bad, they actually expose to us where we're missing the point. So what happens is part of us is very sublime and very holy and okay, doing very well. But then there's a whole part here which needs to be purified. And in a vacuum, we may not quite see this part. We may feel like, I'm there, it's pretty obvious. I am in this beautiful enlightened state, but this part still needs to be purified in our consciousness. And how do we find that? The world is there to help us find that. All these relationships we have, they are constantly pushing us in that area where we have a lot of work to do. So in fact, it's quite wonderful, because relationships, every time there's any feeling that there is some stress, there's some discomfort, then we really need to look at what in me is feeling that it's a challenge.
Mm.
What in me is being thrown off. And instead of externalizing it, which is a strong tendency we have to put it on the other person, why did they say this? It was not a nice thing to say. Instead of doing that, we can say, where did it land in my consciousness?
Mm.
How is that external stimulus impinging on my consciousness? This is very key, because now we're looking at what's going on inside me when I hear that. And this is the clue. When we're open and willing, that's 90% of the job. We tend to think I need to do a lot of work to fix this relationship. That is a very finite perspective. When we step back, we get to this place where there's openness, space, and receptivity, and we see exactly what's going on. When it impinges my consciousness, it's pushing me in this particular spot. Okay, I need to look at that. I need to bring light and awareness and consciousness into that place within me. And then that same relationship, that same interaction feels very different. It feels very different. So what has happened here in a nutshell is we got in touch with our emotions, we self-empowered ourselves, we introspected, and our consciousness expanded, and we released something pretty limiting within us. So this is a blessing from that relationship. Now, it's not the end of the story, because now we can engage in that relationship, but what we're bringing is something quite beautiful, because now we are embodying light, we're embodying love, rather than inadequacy, rather than lack of something. We're coming from this place of fullness to that relationship, to that interaction, and we're able now to share love and truly be in that relationship. So now we're actually going to go from doing in the relationship to being in the relationship. And when we can be in the relationship flows. There's more harmony, there's more love, and of course there's bumps here and there. But those bumps are not going to take us out of this place of being loving. We still continue to be in a place of love, which demonstrate that it's true love. If it's true love, it shouldn't be thrown off. It's still true love. And it goes beyond the usual love. The usual love is very interpersonal. It's like, here's one person I love, here's another person I love. There's a handful of people. But this love is much more universal and much more unconditional. And anybody who comes within that field feels the love. So yeah, it's not as if something beautiful has to happen. Nothing has to happen. You just show up and there's love.
Yeah. Yeah, what an amazing opportunity that we have someone else who amplifies, let's say, my shadow or whatever is not full of light within me, and brings it up, and then you can own it, claim that, go through it, and then what I just sense is both you bring more light into the relationship, and you have more safety around that because you hold space for each other. I mean, this understanding of relationship, it could change the world. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's based on connection. It's based on unity at the essence level. Because one of the things about all this, what I'm talking about with beingness and essence, this is universal. This is not for like 5 special people on the planet. This is fundamental to all of us. So in the context of a relationship, when we see the other person as essence, rather than all the things that are the more superficial personality things, then we're able to set that aside, because usually it's very distracting. We get carried away with literal stuff. This person said this. Okay, we get thrown off by that. Instead of that, we're able to see past it into who they are, because who they are is more important than anything that they said or did. And when we can see that essence, when we can see our essence, it's a beautiful relationship because there's connection, there's unity, there's love, just like that. We don't have to manufacture love. It's there. We just see it.
Yeah, and it reminds me, so my wife Petra and I, we do workshops, and there is one initiation, the workshop when we start, where everyone introduces each other. We walk around in the room and we just get in touch, connect to each other, and then we ask, please, may I have permission to get in touch with the essence of you?
Oh,
and to
beautiful.
see your light and to see your essence. And then we wait, and then something is happening, and then after like 20 minutes, and it's just started, but it's almost, there's such a foundation where we could say this was it. That was the workshop already, right?
Yes.
Because there is this willingness just to see everyone else in their essence, and there, if I can see you in your essence, then I can feel my essence. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, this brings a relationship to a different dimension, different understanding, and I wish thousands of people are listening to this, and especially the partners. Yes. Excellent. So you also write about the light and how light can create like a quantum shift of healing. Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Yes. So as we start getting in touch with ourselves, we start from what appears to be very finite, this body and the place we live in, and so on. As we feel into that, we get in touch with the non-physical aspects of ourselves. So something beyond what we can taste, touch, and so on. And this non-physical aspect, as we get into it, we find there's more and more and more and more. It's actually absolutely fascinating to see and feel into these higher aspects of who we are. So we might give them names like, for example, the energetic aspect of who we are, which is kind of the blueprint, you could say, from which the physical aspect emerges. So the energetic aspect is already now getting in touch with a much bigger space, with a much larger sense of who we are, which is not so much caught up in the same finite space-time reality that the body, mind, personality is. Energy is already very freeing. And energy is the higher and higher vibrations, higher and higher frequencies. And as we go through and past all that, we come to, you could say, the whole strata of super high frequencies, which is the frequencies of light. So this light that I'm talking about is not the typical physical light or the electromagnetic light, but this is, you could say, non-physical, higher dimensional, transcendental light. And we can directly perceive this in our higher centers. So I'm sure several, if not a lot of people, have internally perceived light. And this is the light I'm talking about, the transcendental light. So this is something we see within ourselves, but also creation is like that. We can look at the planet, we can look at the galaxies, there's the physical aspect, but beyond that is the energetic aspect, and beyond that is the light, which is, you could say, the finest, subtlest level of vibration is this light. Now, what happens is we tend to be very entangled and caught up in our finite physical reality. And sometimes it's very hard for us to pull ourselves back from this and get to this place of higher consciousness. One of the very powerful ways I've come across to get there more easily is to directly engage with this light. When you directly engage with light, what happens is you recognize that this light is very much a part of you. You invoke it. When you invoke light, instantly there's an influx of light, because as soon as you invoke it, you are self-activating it. you're energizing it, you're acknowledging it, and the light within your being increases instantly. And this is very conducive to a shift in consciousness. So if you are able to invoke light, and if you are willing and able to release some of these things which are in the finite space, whether it's in the past or concerns about the future, whatever it is, as soon as you release that and you feel into this light, instantly you find your consciousness is shifted.
Mm.
It is quite beautiful, and it is astonishing that it's so much of help and assistance to us in this journey to have this relationship with light. So I encourage people to really try it and see how it feels for themselves, because it can completely shift your inner journey.
Can you give us a practical example? How do you invoke light?
Okay. How about we take a few minutes and actually do that? Shall we do that rather than talk about it? Would that be
excellent? Yes, I'm already. I have difficulties talking because I sense that vibrational transmission already. Please, yes, thank you.
Yes. So we'll take a few minutes and do a short meditation. So I would encourage you to settle down, be comfortable, and close your eyes. And even with your eyes closed, lift up your gaze. So internally, it's as if you're looking up at the sky. So look up, but without any strain. Let there be ease as you're looking at an open sky and admiring the clouds. Just like that, look up at the sky and relax. And as you sit in that place of relaxation, start noticing your breath. And let there be this softness in your heart. So let go of this striving. So don't feel like you need to put a lot of energy to make this work. In fact, you don't need to do anything. So relax, feel the softness in your heart. Notice the breath is flowing more easily. Notice the flow. And as you keep your gaze lifted, let us call upon light. I call it the light of infinity, because this is the primordial light, the fundamental light, the pristine light, the highest vibration that exists. We're calling upon this light. And you can start feeling it as if you are sitting underneath a waterfall. So this light is descending, touching you on the top of the head, going through your being. It's splashing all around you, filling you with this uplifting, beautiful quality of joy. The joy of being alive, the joy of existing, the joy of being able to experience this. And you can feel this rippling through your entire being. You can feel this in your physical body. You can feel the tingles, the sensations. You can feel it in your energetic space. You can feel it as a quickening, a lightening, an acceleration, an infusion of colors. And in your emotional space, there's a sense of resting. There's a sense of all is well. All is well. The mind and the emotions start calming down at a very deep level because they pick up on this high vibration and they sense that I don't need to do a whole lot here. Everything is taken care of. So I can sit back. The mind can sit back. The emotions can relax. And this results in a further influx of light. Because now we're making space, we're inviting it, we're allowing it, we are loving it. And so this increases dramatically the light pouring into us. And the more you feel it, the more it increases. And your consciousness is already shifted to something much closer to your essence. Because in this more refined vibration, you can directly feel into your essence right now. It's pure consciousness, pure beingness, pure bliss, pure presence. And this is the essence of who you are, an infinite being of light. An infinite being of light. Feel into that. Feel into this absolutely amazing truth of your true nature. So let's spend a few seconds in silence, feeling more and more deeply into that. And now, when you feel ready, you can take a few conscious breaths as you gently open your eyes. And if you like, you can continue to listen to this conversation from that space. Yes, that's a direct experience where I hope you felt that pure presence.
Ooh. Oh, thank you so much. I feel so grateful. There's such a radiance of light. Even the room seems to be more bright now. I need sunglasses. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and actually, what was so amazing to me is, obviously, I'm here to facilitate the session, right? But there was this space where I wasn't anymore. I was just light. Till you said, "Oh, you can come back, and if you want." Oh, said, "Yeah, I have a duty here. I have something to do, right?" And the other thing is what I'm sensing is I feel like expanded. I feel just spacious. I think it's the right word. So spacious, and this light. And I think it's a beautiful gift in this interview. but also like the process which allows you from a place of being finite to do the meditation and experience the infinite self or the infinite beingness of you.
Yes.
And I didn't look at the time, but and this just in 5 minutes. Yeah, so because people might think, oh, it takes decades to practice meditation, but I guess it's more dedication and this, yeah, beingness.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
Yes. I wish I could go back in time and talk to who I was, decades back, because I too
Tell me
felt
about it.
like
Yes.
I
Oh,
would keep working on this in a very particular way. But reality is, it's almost like there's a gift. It's already delivered to your doorstep. You have to just open the door and accept the gift. It's really like that, because
mm,
the the ingredients for success have been built into us,
mm,
because this nature of who we are, it cannot be something we just bolt onto it. It's
mm.
been there since the beginning.
Yes.
So since it's there, if you think about it, that sets you up for success. It
Yes.
sets up success. So as long as, I would say, number one, if you mean business, when you're really wanting this, you already are in pretty good shape.
Mm,
When you really want it,
mm,
that establishes a
mm,
certain strong connection and receptivity.
mm,
Second thing I would say is, you want to be very humble, because that is a big prerequisite.
mm,
You do not need some big qualifications. You don't need to know a lot of philosophy, but boy, you need to be humble,
mm,
because the humility allows that to be received.
mm,
So the wanting of that, the receptivity, and then I would say, thirdly, actively engage with it, just like we did. Invoke light and be as clear as you can. So let go of anything that's going on in your current reality that's bothering you. Let it all go. Invoke infinity, invoke the light of infinity, and simply be present. Everything else is taken care of.
mm. Yeah, that's what I like specifically about you is then from this huge space coming back to this practical elements, which is your background as an engineer. Yeah? So it's just the four steps. You need to want it. Second is you need to have this receptivity to feel receptive. You need to be humble in order to pray, almost to allow that the grace come in, that the light comes in, and then you need to engage with it to embody it. So four simple steps for the listeners, if you want to summarize it. Beautiful. Well, Suresh, so you also have a non-profit organization. It's we can find this on www.radiantfield.org. Can you tell the listener how do they engage and what's happening in this non-profit organization?
Okay. Yes. So I talked earlier about embodiment and this natural urge to share light. And, when we look at our planet, it's such a beautiful planet. And yet there's a lot of things going on which can be unsettling. And we have a tendency, if we're caught up in the finite, to try to engage only at the finite level. And this can be very frustrating, because the problems are a little deeper. The problems are actually coming from lack of consciousness. So, Radiant Field is a nonprofit I started to tackle the issues at the consciousness level rather than simply at the surface level. So when you deal with it at the consciousness level and the collective consciousness, that's really the main idea behind the organization, to really bring forth these higher dimensional light, vibrations, consciousness into the collective, so that we can all more easily and more readily lift our consciousness. And so it comes to processes and practices like we get together to emanate light. So the group of us come together and we see ourselves as part of this grid of light, where every being on the planet is on this grid. So we're all connected essence to essence. And from that place of deep connectivity, we share light,
Mm.
the light of our being, which is really light that is flowing from up above through us into this collective.
Mm.
And this is really, I feel, waking up everybody and supporting them from the inside
Mm.
so that they can come alive, they can recognize their true nature, and they can be truly blossoming
Mm.
and reaching their highest potentials.
Mm.
And so Radiant Field, again, I welcome anybody who wants to join this to connect with us, to contact us, so you can participate in these group calls, light activations we have from time to time, where we empower ourselves and with the idea of sharing light.
Mm. Is there a cost associated with this, or no?
No, there is no cost associated.
Yeah.
This is completely free.
Mm.
Anybody can sign up. Anybody can join anytime. Anybody can leave anytime.
Mm. Free spirit.
Yes. So
Mm.
it is really meant to be a very loosely structured organization to just bring us together. But there's no membership. There's no fees.
Yeah.
There's no nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, Suresh, and I think this is now more needed than ever with this global pandemic, people in fear. And what I like about your platform, Radiant Field, is it connects like-minded people, like people who are interested in spirituality, consciousness, infinity. But on the website, I register, I give my email, and then the process starts, right? So you mail then people and invite them for meditation also.
Exactly. Once we have your email, you'll be updated about how you can join some of these calls and how you can also, you may be inspired to undertake some other activities that will spread light. So we encourage people to follow their inspiration. It's not just that you're joining this big organization and these are the three things. It's quite open.
Yeah, it's shared learning, and excellent. And obviously, as for the listeners, and if you listen for the first time to this podcast, every link is always shared below, be it in Spotify or on YouTube or iTunes, wherever you listen to that, you will find the links below the recording. The other link obviously is www.justbebook.org, where you can also find beautiful other interviews and teachings from Suresh. And Suresh, you also offer transformational retreats. Of course, now it's a bit difficult face-to-face, but you do it also online. So you have online events for light activation, something which we did now. This is something then differently, right? What's that about?
Yes. So it is an activation that helps people remember their essence. So these are specific activities that intensify that knowing, because that knowing is within us. It just needs to be activated. It cannot be, implanted. It's already there within. It helps to, we just need to help it blossom. So we have numerous activities, including, as you mentioned, retreats. I also do one-on-one sessions with people all over the world. There's also numerous types of monthly calls and so forth. These are all avenues for people to experience that, especially if you feel resonance with what I'm sharing. I would encourage you to take a look at some of these things.
Excellent. Any specific plans for you for 2021 or what's coming? Anything?
Yeah, well, everything is so unpredictable, especially now.
Yeah.
But 2021, in some ways, I feel very excited about it because I feel some of the challenges in 2020, even though none of us wanted that, they actually have ripened us, believe it or not. They've ripened us and made us more open, more attuned, and more actively interested in higher consciousness, in deeper truths. So 2021, I see really touching a lot of people who are these really ripe souls who are really wanting this. And when I say ripe, I'm not talking about, we don't need to think about it as any type of advancement. It's the real wantingness for that is indicative of the ripeness. So I'm very excited to look ahead to 2021 and look at all these unfoldments where I have a chance to connect in various formats, in various places across the country and across the world, where you and I, you who are watching this, we are able to come together and really splash in the light, really enjoy the light, and really be in that remembrance of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there can't be any better words to finish this conversation with you. Yeah, I want to thank you from my heart. What I like about you is your capacity to put so complex things into very structured word, but then also to have this presence, this beingness to guide a meditation like this, which I'm sure everyone enjoys. So thank you for your time, Suresh, and I wish you lots of success with your book and everything you do. And thank you for helping to raise the consciousness of humanity. Namaste.
Thank you, Nico. It's been a joy.
Namaste. Bye, my friend. Bye.
Bye.
Podcast for your soul, your compass, your journey, your light.